goodness. Welcome to the first episode of From the Fourth Line, a new hockey podcast brought to you by me, Emma, and my lovely British friend, Marcie.
Woo!
Yeah. You probably have no idea what we sound like, but you do know our usernames on Twitter. We are probably co-presidents of the Joseph Wool official fan club.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, speaking of Joseph Wool and the Leafs, I mean, we can dive right into talking about Sweden. I feel like we could hit it off the bat.
Yeah. Oh, Sweden. What a time.
What a trip Sweden was. It extended the Leafs win streak to 4 games now, going into what will be a very interesting back-to-back to watch. But I think it all started even before they started playing games, when we saw that everyone except for John Klingberg went to all of the events with
Yep.
William Nylander. He took literally everyone he could except for him. And then, Keefe said that he is hurt and that a transatlantic flight was not good. There's a lot of rumors about his hip and if that's what it was, and that he could now be out for good. We'll see. I mean, I will say the defense looked much better in both games without him there.
I spent a lot less time wanting to cry.
Yeah, it's kind of nice when, for once, we're not yelling at a defenseman wearing the number 3.
Yeah. There could have been a bit more puck throwing, but
there always could be. Yeah, also no Reeves in the lineup as well in both games. Again, fourth line has looked really great without him there. So 1.5 million is a really expensive cheerleader. But I guess we could start with just like a recap of game 1 versus Detroit. It was a slow first period. I don't know, I noticed that. They were half asleep still.
yeah.
But
I think I was watching it with my friends. So I was watching it very much from the perspective of, I really hope it's a good game, because if not, I've brought them around for disappointment. They enjoyed it, but they don't know the horrors of Leafs hockey. So
Leafs in Detroit, you get a mixed bag. You get a close game or you get a 10-7 win. You have no in between. But I think it all really started in the second. I think that's kind of when the game picked up, I guess. We had Jake Wallman have a really interesting fall into the net that almost resulted in maybe the most Leafs goal I've ever seen in my entire life, in which Marner took a shot on net before the whistle went and maybe it went in.
That caused a lot of yelling at the TV. A lot of what the fucks.
A lot of, you would think, that top-down view, I was like, that went in. But
yeah,
it was so close to call that I was like, you couldn't overturn the goal on that at all. So it's whatever. But then, of course, because it wasn't called a goal and it was just a face-off in the Detroit zone, it leads to a scramble at the other end of the net, in which Morgan Rielly probably makes a very not 2023 Morgan Rielly mistake, and where he's a 10-year league veteran in covering the puck in the crease, and that leads to a penalty shot on Samsonov, which is probably his weakness. I feel like, I don't know about you, but
it was
both of those goals. You're like, oh, you should have had him, Sammy. That and the Raymond shot where it was just, what was he doing?
Yeah, it was tough to watch, because it's you can see he's getting back into it, and he's coming back from whatever was going on with him. But then at the same time, it was you very much should have had that.
I know. This was probably his best game that we've seen from him all season. I would
Definitely.
say that with confidence. It was the best game we've seen from him all season. And there was a couple times where you're looking there and you're like, what are you doing? But, you know, and then of course we have, because this is a Leafs game, Leafs still can't count no matter what country they're in.
Oh, I can count better than the Leafs.
So, and I will defend them slightly. The benches are longer. It was a miscommunication. It made it harder with, you know, changing lines and that sort of thing. But that means that they now take sole possession of the most bench minors in the league this season with 6, and they're all too many men bench minors.
It's
which
it's just funny at this point.
If you're going to take a stat away from the Leafs, it's that is like one of those things where like, what are we doing here? Learn to count to 5. It's not hard. I'm like, come on. And it makes it look like some bad bench management from Keefe, right? It's his weak spot as a coach, probably is that, because obviously you got to put the blame on someone, and it's always going to be Keefe behind the bench right now in those situations where you're like, come on,
you can't exactly start blaming the players.
Oh no,
something very much should be able to happen.
And then of course we had probably the best Joseph Wollcrom all season, in which there is not a single thought behind his eyes when Samsonov takes a puck off of the neck collarbone area. It looked a little bit scary for a little bit there, you know, because of just where it was, obviously, but I think he was just more shaken up than anything, maybe a little bit winded. But then they cut to Woll on the bench, who is not even looking at the Leafs end. He is off looking, I don't know where he's looking, but it just
he's in his own little world.
He's going to his mind palace. I saw a tweet where someone was like, Joseph Woll, he's going to his goalie mind palace. That's where he is. But I will say, if you're an enjoyer of goalies and you watch the Sweden games and you like watching goalies just sit and watch their team from the bench, that they had that one camera at the end of the bench that was perfect for that. And
it was just like little bits of just happiness. Like we were just sat there watching it, and every so often he'd just pop up, and we'd just be like, "There he is."
Oh yeah, because I'd also
living his best life.
Oh, absolutely, he was, and I'd like the record to show that even though there's no video for this episode, me and Marcie are both wearing our Joseph Woll jerseys in honor.
Get it special.
But yeah, I also do want to talk about the second line of Nylander, Tavares, and Bertuzzi, who have looked ridiculous. Like, I know Bertuzzi was signed to kind of replace Bunting on that top line, but I think he fits so much better here on the second with Nylander and Tavares. I don't know why. They're all 3 very different players in terms of their play style and just their personalities as well off the ice, but like, it looks good. It looks so good. And we'll talk about when we talk about the second game as well. But it was good. Because, you know, Bertuzzi had that really, really great revenge goal as a former Red Wing, which we love those. We love those goals.
Yeah, it was brilliant to watch. We were all loving it. My friend said something about him that really made me laugh. Like when you had like a close up of when he was on the bench, and she just said he looks like a man who doesn't get fed unless he scores, and he was hungry. And I was like, she summed that up so well. It's like,
that's honestly so accurate. I'm like, as someone who is Canadian, like, he is that, like, if you watch an episode of Letterkenny, like, it's right there. You can, that is a man from Northern Ontario, and you can tell, like, that, you know, he is from Northern Ontario, but like, you can, like, that's Tyler Bertuzzi for us. But, and then of course we've got Nylander with the tying goal to make it a 2-2 game. I just have it in all caps. Nylander goal ! In my notes on that one. Just a absolute classic, like, Nylander goal, just textbook.
He's on fire, and I don't know what he's doing differently. I don't know where it's come from. He wants that pay rise.
he wants that, like, $11-12 million contract. He's like, the cap is going up and it's all gonna go to me.
Yeah, he's like, he's not leaving anything for anyone else.
Absolutely not. And to have a streak that continues this, like, I saw people complaining, specifically Rangers fans or Leafs haters, being like, well, Panarin's also on a season opening streak as well, but his is only 15 games because of just the way the Rangers schedule has, worked out. They've played less games so far this season than the Leafs have. And it's like, okay, yeah, he is, but, like, Nylander's, like, he's better right now.
Yeah.
And, we'll see how that goes with, it's definitely are both players to keep an eye on, for sure. And then obviously Captain Clutch. I feel like we can't take the Captain Clutch moniker from Marie-Philippe Poulin, but we might have to give it to John Tavares as he scores the game winner and then sets off the most stressful 2.5 minutes of my entire life.
Oh, God.
Because, like, I was I was fine with the game when the Leafs were losing, especially, like, even though they were down still 1. I was like, after the Bertuzzi goal, Nylander keeps the streak. I was like, okay, whatever. If they lose, I'm perfectly happy to talk about a Leafs loss. But then they are up by 1. It's the Leafs. And it's 2.5 minutes.
It could be up by 10, and it's still
and then we still
very
have
much
stress, And it's like, also at the same time, like, there was a good solid, like, the last minute and a half of the game was all Detroit possession, especially then they pulled their goalie. But I do think, that third period was just probably some really good Leafs hockey for sure.
Yeah.
The penalty kill was great in both games, actually. I do want to talk about the penalty, and especially Noah Gregor, because, considering the name of our show, we got to talk about the fourth line.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that
Fourth
a little bit more. Fourth line highlights, which is just Noah Gregor gets a breakaway. His speed has been fantastic for the Leafs right now. But Leafs win. Nylander player of the game. He gets a nice Rolex. That was what their gifts were for the players of the game. The Ottawa Senators posted just Tim Stützle receiving his in the game afterwards, and they offered to engrave it for him. So,
that'd be nice.
It would be really nice to get a Rolex watch for playing some really good hockey. But yeah, game 2. I don't know if you have anything. I probably am not one to talk about game 2 because I was half asleep for game 2. It started at 8 a.m. for me here in Ottawa. You had a little bit of a nicer watch time because it was mid-afternoon. I was watching it 8 a.m. in the morning. I had set my alarm, and Simon slept through the entire first period. So
no, I don't blame him.
Yeah,
first period's where it always starts to go wrong. So he's kind of doing himself a favor.
I mean, it did start to go wrong early for the Leafs in the first, down by 1 already pretty early on. I think, honestly, that looking, at that game, we love Joseph Woll. He should have had that first goal, though.
Yeah, it wasn't his best.
No, he had no screen on the play, so just
it was one of those where it's like you realize that you should have had it, but you realize that a bit too late, and then there's not much you can do. You just kind of gotta accept it and just be like, yeah, that was mine, and I messed it up.
And then we had a lot of penalties going back and forth. And then we had that Tavares shot that went off of Giordano's skate I was tearing my hair out at the TV. I was ready to fight an old man who I knew could fight back. we've seen how Giordano can fight, and I was ready to just start. I was ready to go to Toronto myself and wait for him at Pearson to show up.
I'd swim over, back
Yeah,
you up.
but like all good things, we have Austin Matthews on the power play.
What
That
more could
what more Nylander assist streak lives on.
Yep, that was I was sat getting ready to leave to go to another hockey game. And I was like half watching, half getting ready. And as soon as I heard that it extended the point streak, I think I jumped up and I was like, he's done it. Like
Oh my.
he's insane. I don't understand
Like it's like we've seen
how.
flashes of this, and I think we've seen this his entire career is we've seen
Mm,
flashes of Nylander playing good hockey like this, and this is probably the first time that he's been able to put together this for like such an extended period of time that
mm,
you're like he could like whoa. Right?
yeah, it's brilliant to watch.
Oh my god, it's so fun to watch. Even like when the Leafs lose, like Nylander has been playing well, and so it's like it's gonna be something. Um, so that ties the game up, and then Matthew, fucking nice.
Oh my God, it was beautiful.
Oh my god. Oh, and I think at this point, like I haven't seen a not like just absolute beautiful goal from Nyes in his career.
Yeah,
Like all of his goals have been beautiful goals.
yeah. He's he's just, oh my God. Everything he does, like even if you start and you're just like, this isn't gonna work, he makes it work. Like if it goes wrong, he turns it round and he goes, I'm still gonna get this. I'm still gonna do it.
Yeah.
And then he does, and I'm like, how?
Well, he's gonna turn around sometimes literally. I think
Yeah,
he spins all the time. I've noticed that about his play. Like he spins and it works for him. It looks ridiculous sometimes because you're like you could have not done that, but if it works for him and he keeps scoring the goals that he has been, I'm not gonna complain about it. Also on this goal to note as well, Marner got an assist, making him the fastest Leaf to hit 400 assists in his career for the Leafs and seventh to reach in team history, the first to do it since Matt Sundin.
the
Which
entire
is,
team is on fire.
you
Like this
know,
is such a good start to the season for like everyone.
yes, there has been some games where you're like, this is so frustrating to watch. I mean, obviously,
Mm,
you look at the Leafs and the standings and you look at their record so far and you think, you just look at that and you're like, this isn't right. They've
yeah.
they don't look like they're playing well, but you watch a game and you watch the individual performances from these guys and they look spectacular. It's just been a downfall of like especially just the forward group. I think probably they've been so consistent all season. I think the
Yeah.
issue has been for the Leafs right now was defense, which is tale as old as time. And goaltending.
When will
Again,
it not be an issue?
when will goaltending and defense like not be an issue for the Leafs? Never. And I think, that having Reeves in that fourth line just was not helpful to
No.
them. And I think now with, it's been looking better and for the defense as well. Like you also have to think like we have Liljegren who's out, who probably won't be back until Christmas. And then Timmins is he was there. Like there were suggestions he might
Mm.
play in Sweden. He was there. He was practicing with the team. So I think we might see him. If we don't see him Friday, Saturday in that back-to-back on the road, we will see him back at home next week with fine.
Yeah.
I think there is some cap things to, shuffle about, but it'll
Mm.
be interesting. Here we go. More Leafs penalties. Solid penalty kill though. We can talk about the fourth line now, I think as well. Just We love the fourth line. That fourth
Love our little
line.
fourth line.
The
They're
fourth
just
line of Gregor, who I think I don't know if I've tweeted this out, but I have this in my notes actually multiple times, that he reminds me very much of like just very big Zach Aston Reese energy,
yes,
right?
absolutely. Like I know next to nothing about him, but
He has a
it's
dog.
yeah, he has a dog. The dog it'll never be Cal and Lola, but no one ever will. But he's got a dog. He's got the right vibe.
He's
I think
fast.
he fits in really well.
He does. He does. He's really fast, like with
Mm,
and without the puck. He's been able to sort of produce those chances on the penalty kill. He is on the penalty kill as well. And
yeah.
I think he's able to just produce those chances, those shorthanded goal opportunities, which is helpful when you're on the penalty kill. Like, yes, you want the penalty kill to be very defensive and like a shutdown line, special team for sure. But also, like, if you can score on the penalty kill and you can score shorthanded goals, like that's a bonus. And I think he does provide that. And it's great with like McMahon has been a call up this season. I know you love Bobby McMahon.
Bobby McMahon. The Marley's account must be so sick of me. Every time he does anything, you just get me quoting it, just like it's just he's my son. He's my little boy, my son, my
And
child.
and I think like the experiment of having Camp on the third line obviously didn't work, and he just works
No.
like, yes, you're paying him $2.5 million a year, which is expensive for a fourth line guy, but I think he does a really good job of centering that line, you
Mm,
know, of he's really good on the fourth line, and if you have someone who's really good on the fourth line, it's helpful when
yeah.
there are those nights where you have to put Reeves in because of injury or whatever it may be. You know, you can't have your fourth line be your weakness because it's going to be a long game if you do. But we love our fourth line.
I don't care how bad they are. Like
It's yeah, those bottom
the
line minutes are what keeps us going.
honestly, like my friends were like pointing him out and they were like, I don't know who he is, but he's not doing very good. And I'm like, yeah, but that
Brings the vibes.
that's irrelevant because just look at him. Like look at his little face.
Yeah,
Like how can you be mad at him? Like he's just trying his best.
exactly. That one wool save, can we talk about that wool save, the split save against
Oh,
Kaprizov, where it was like, what, like, he has described his body as goofy. Thank God for that goofy body, because
oh my
his
God.
flex, unbelievable. I'm not a flexible person, so
No,
doing that makes me feel in pain, but like, oh my God.
she's like watching him and just in the splits, and I'm like, I can't even touch my toes.
Oh, I can't touch my toes either.
Like it's incredible.
Oh my God.
And it's like
Anyway, we're in awe of Joseph Wool, if
there's
you
no
can't
words.
tell.
Absolutely
We
speechless.
love him. Continuing on, we got a lot of this game to motor through. We're still only in what, the second, third period now at this point. There's a little bit of a scuffle. Yeah, here we go. Robertson. Can we talk about Robertson for a bit? Kid's a little,
We are absolutely.
he had a good look. He seemed kind of off, honestly. I don't blame some guys for feeling off in Sweden. Yes, it's 2 games. Yes, it's 4 points, but you know, travel is hard. International travel is hard. I've done the transatlantic travel. It's tough. It's tough. Um,
Like
jet lag.
the fact that they showed up and they still played and they won two
They
games.
won 2 games. We got 4
Like
points.
very, very happy with that.
Yeah. Morgan Riley. Morgan Riley. we Morgan Riley. There's like, I think a lot of people kind of were saying, like, last season people were saying he was on a little bit of his skill. He was getting worse, is what people were saying last year.
Yeah.
I think people just forget that he was playing through injury. He missed so many games because he was hurt and he was playing through injury. And we saw him really like come alive and become like the Morgan Riley that we know during the playoffs. And he's
Yeah,
continuing, and he's kept the momentum going.
Yeah, he's playoff smart was just incredible.
Incredible.
And
And
you love to see it. And
oh
it's
yeah,
like you love to see him doing well because he's been there for so long. He he's trying. He wants to win, and you can tell that he's like now more than ever. He's really going for it.
oh yeah, absolutely.
And as he should.
So that puts the game up 3-1, which is probably every Leafs fan's second least favorite score after 4-1.
Yep.
There's some you're like, 2-goal lead. The final score of this game was 4-3. So obviously you can see where this is going. Jake Middleton scores. There was a screen in front. Okay, 3-2. Then Matt Zuccarello, 3-3, deflection in the crease. Just one of those things where you're like, those are 2 goals, which, you would like Joseph Woll to have in a perfect world, but also that those were just 2 really good goals. And so you can't fully blame him for that, but you are a little bit like, oh, wanted that. That means we're off to everyone's favorite thing to watch, Leafs overtime.
No, because I was messaging you. I was sat on the bus. I couldn't watch. And I was like, we were getting ready to announce the podcast.
Yeah, we
And
did.
I was like, oh, how long's left? And then you just go, it's gone to OT, and I'm like, fuck. So I'm like, I'm gonna start crying on this bus in the middle of Manchester.
Yeah, no, that was one of them. It was like, I was like, Leafs overtime, killer for my happiness. But Leafs are really lucky Joseph Woll plays for them. There was a couple of saves that he made where I was like, this man is playing defense for his own team and also being a goalie at the same time.
Yeah,
yeah.
He's doing the job of 3 people out there.
Oh,
and
absolutely. He shouldn't have to, but he is. There was a couple
But at
where
least
I
he's
was
good
like,
at it.
there was that one where it was like all 3 Leafs on the ice were in one corner, and Minnesota could just take a shot at the net. And I was like, what are you doing? It was Matthews and Marner, and I think probably TJ Brody, if we're knowing the way Keefe likes to play the power play. I was like, what are you doing?
The Leafs.
There's 3 of you there. Look around, count. Wait, 1, 2, 3. Like,
I mean, we already know they can't count, so.
Yeah, we already know that, but Joseph Woll makes a really great save. And then William Nylander goes end to end for the game winner. And I think maybe the best reaction was not William himself. Was Michael Nylander, was his dad in the stands. They cut to him, and you can see him say to the guy behind him, did you fucking see that?
You just love to see it.
Oh my God, love it. It was a beautiful goal. Riley, player of the game, which I saw a lot of people saying, why wasn't it Nylander?
We need to afford him.
We need to be able to afford him. Yes. Also, a man does not need 2 Rolexes.
Nope.
And Morgan Riley's a big watch guy, apparently. But I think Morgan Riley just, no offense to William Nylander, because he did have a really great game. Morgan Riley did have a better game. And people seem to be like, but he didn't score like the game winner. I was like, yeah, but he's also a defenseman too. So like you have to look at his defensive production as well this game. And it was great.
Yeah, so you can't expect him. Yeah, you can't expect him to go out there and score William Nylander numbers.
No.
Because you just not get it.
He's a defenseman.
It's not his job.
No. It's not like he's Erik Karlsson, who's essentially a forward who can skate backwards. And that is a statement. Apologies to Penguin fans and the Sharks fans and Ottawa fans as well. I live in Ottawa now. I know how celebrated he is here. But just like Erik Karlsson is a forward who can skate backwards, especially when you look at his point totals last year. Like it was like he broke 100 points, which is something Marner did not do. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Leafs, fantastic way to end a trip to Sweden. Let's talk Hockey Canada. So obviously there was some news this past week about the World Juniors 2018 report that decisions on sanction has been reached by a panel, but one of the players or multiple players on the 2018 who would receive a sanction from this report or would be named in the report as a offender is appealing the sanctions against Hockey Canada, but Hockey Canada is not saying who's hearing the appeal. It's coming from a player. That's all they said, that it's coming from a player. That was in their official statement. And that London police in October 2022 had enough evidence to convict 5 players of sexual assault. And then Hockey Canada will likely make names and sanctions public if appeal is unsuccessful, regardless if the London police are ready to press charges or whatnot. But the timeline for when this appeal will finish is unknown. So a lot of information is up in the air. This was all via Rick Westhead tweet, as well as the official statement by Hockey Canada. A big one that I was never mentioned, though, and I think this is kind of big considering all of the international tournaments that the NHL wants to introduce in the coming week. I think we'll talk about that in the next episode, just so we have enough time, considering there's no Leafs hockey till Friday. But all members of the 2018 World Juniors teams, just even if they were in London for that banquet or not, are unable to participate in Hockey Canada sanctioned programs and events. So one of the big names on that list, and I think probably the biggest one, is that Cale Makar. So say the Avs don't make the playoffs this year. I don't know how likely that is, but say they don't make the playoffs or they get knocked out early and he wants to go play in the World Cup in, I think it's Sweden or Switzerland this year. He cannot do that because it's a Hockey Canada sanctioned tournament. He can't play in it. So that's big, especially because it's well known that he was not even in the country when this happened. He was playing NCAA hockey at the time, so he was in the States. But I think definitely for sure, like, this is, you really wish the best for the victim at this time. Obviously I think it's, really, really stupid that the players who have, we have to say allegedly at this point so we don't get sued for defamation because we don't have lawyer money right now.
We're students.
Students. We don't have lawyer. We can't hire a lawyer if we get sued. So allegedly, we have to be very careful and say that we're not, like, we can't get sued for defamation, but allegedly committed the sexual assault against I believe she was also a University of Western student as well. Like, she was a student as well. Like, I think it's just garbage that they're appealing sanctions. Like, honestly, I think they're deal with the punishment that you've been given because you did something awful. And okay, that punishment is you can't, like, getting banned from Hockey Canada sanctioned events. Well, playing to represent your country is a privilege, not a right. And maybe there's NHL sanctions as well. There's punishment from a league level from the NHL. Well, again, playing NHL hockey is a privilege, not a right. So I think it's especially because Hockey Canada has been so tight-lipped about this, and it's taken so long to get any sort of information, and we have nothing. So more Hockey Canada news as well while we're on this topic as well. Not to totally switch, but we are talking about Team Canada and World Juniors. Ron Francis also announced this week that Shane Wright will likely not be going to World Juniors. He notified Hockey Canada. Shane Wright has played 7 games with the Coachella Valley Firebirds this season, which is the AHL affiliate of the Seattle Kraken. Called up to Kraken for 2 games and then was sent back down to the AHL. And in last year's World Juniors, which Canada won gold, by the way, in an overtime winner by Connor Bedard. I was watching that game in a no one sound bowling alley, so it was exciting. 7 games, 4 goals, 3 assists, so that's a combined 7 points. Ron Francis said in the statement, like he was quoted saying, well, he's been there, done that. I also think he's not playing a considerable amount of NHL hockey right now.
No.
It's not like if he goes over, it is overseas this year. I think it's I want to say Switzerland. Again, I don't want to be wrong, but like I think you give he obviously enjoys it. It's a tournament he's participated in. Let him do it. Let him do it, Ron. Like, it's good for him as from the player development standpoint, I think, for sure, especially because he won't be playing NHL game. Like, it doesn't look like it right now. He hasn't had a considerable amount of NHL games in his career. So
yeah, I think it's gonna be a while until he gets like a solid spot.
I think so too. And I think a lot of people are saying that makes him a bust. I do not think so. I think that just COVID impacts player development. And I feel like this is something that has been said from certain people, namely Steve Dangle. I think this is probably one of the ones that, like, one of the points that weirdly I agree with. Like, not that I agree with him on most things, but I seem to agree with him on this, and that Joseph Woll is an amazing goalie.
Yep.
It's that player development, especially for like the past few draft classes, has been impacted by COVID and has been impacted by the pandemic. Like, there was no junior hockey getting played in 2020. Like, it, yes, we were getting NHL games. We were not getting there was nothing else getting played. And you see that with guys like Shane Wright. You see that with players like Nick Robertson. You saw it even with Joseph Woll as well, even though he was battling injuries at that time as well. But like, and then you give him some time. Shane Wright is still fairly young. He's 20.
Like, his career is very much not over. And I think
absolutely.
a lot of people also forget, like, playing in the AHL is good for development. Like, you can't take a player and just throw them straight into the NHL. That's not gonna work well. It's not gonna end well.
It's not gonna work,
and that's
for most
when they
players
do become busts, because you're putting them into something that they're not ready for. It's like, I think a lot of people just immediately go to, oh, he's not playing NHL. He's failed. And it's like, it's no, he's developing.
He's developing, and
he's learning the game, because it's a different game completely.
There's a huge difference between playing junior hockey and playing, which is with, boys, essentially. Like, you may be like, oh, well, they're older than 18, they're men. I was like, no. It's boys. Junior hockey caps out at 20. It's boys and playing with men, which is what the AHL and the NHL is. Like, going from draft day to NHL is something that does not happen for a lot of players. It happens for very few players. There's exceptions, of course, to every rule. Think McDavid, Bedard, Matthews, Crosby, just to name a few.
But
that the big
that's
name,
because
right?
there are exceptions.
There's exceptions, and they're exceptional players. But Shane Wright, like, it's fine. It's fine. And I think, Ron Francis just needs to allow him to get any development opportunity that he can. And I think, yes, World Juniors, again, like we said, there's a difference between AHL and junior hockey. And World Juniors is, again, junior hockey. There is that age limit, but I think it is probably very, very good for him to be playing against different styles of hockey on an international level, because it's what you encounter in the NHL. Like, it's a multinational league in terms of players, and there isn't as much of that diversity in the AHL just because of the way it works, I find. But also, I think he's friends with a bunch of the guys on Team Canada. Like, let him play with his friends. Again, of course, we are not Ron Francis. We do not have the professional accolades of Ron Francis. We are not the GMs of we do not have the we're not the GMs of the Seattle Kraken, but we do have some suggestions from Ron Francis. So I guess as well, we can probably take this time now.
Let him play with his.
Yeah. Let him play with his friends.
Let him go have fun.
Let him go have fun.
At the end of the day, 20.
Yeah. I guess as well we can probably talk about Milan Lucic now. He was, so just for some background information for those unacquainted, he was arrested in the morning hours of November 18th by Boston police after a domestic incident, is what was described in the statement said by the Boston Bruins. We're not going to call it an incident because it's not an incident. It's assault, especially with the details that came out.
I
Now
think that's
this, yeah, I think that's, so we're going to be using assault because that's what it is. And
that's the thing that annoys me. It's
yeah,
like every time something like this happens, it's always an incident. And it's like, no,
yeah,
it's a crime.
yeah, it's a crime. He's been arrested for
It's
it.
not
And
an
scheduled to be arraigned in Massachusetts court on Tuesday on the charge of assault and battery against a family member. It's assault. So this is from I'm getting all this information from a Daily Face-Off article by Frank Saravalli, who we have our own feelings on Frank Saravalli, but I will say I will be using this article as reference, just because sometimes he does good reporting. So sources told Daily Face-Off that a 911 call was made on Friday night saying that Lucic attempted to choke his wife Brittany after verbal argument allegedly turned physical. According to a copy of the police report, which was obtained by the Boston Globe, Lucic allegedly pulled his wife's hair and police observed redness in the victim's chest area. She stated that she attempted to walk away from her husband and stated that her husband grabbed her by the hair and pulled her backwards. Police wrote in the report, according to the Globe, she stated that in doing so, the suspect stated to her that she was not going anywhere, which is obviously terrifying. And then police also wrote that when they obviously came to the door after the assault, that Lucic appeared to be intoxicated when he answered the door and stated that nothing happened and provided no further explanation for the reasoning of why there was a phone call. It says incident in the article. I know we said we weren't going to use incident, but so that's why I changed the wording there. When told he was going to be arrested for domestic violence, officers observed a broken lamp on the nightstand and what happened to be shards of glass on the floor while escorting him to his bedroom to get clothing. When Boston police asked Lucic's wife whether Lucic attempted to strangle her, she stated he did not. According to the Globe, sources say it was Boston District Attorney Office who decided to press charges in this case based on evidence provided by police. So it was not his wife, Brittany, who wanted to press charges. It was in Canada and the UK, what you would consider the Crown. It was the district, but because this is Boston in the US, it's called the District Attorney's Office. Just because I feel like we're gonna have a mishmash of multinationalisms here.
It's a lot going.
It's a lot going. We have two Canadians. We have two non-Americans. We have a Canadian and a Brit talking about American laws. So
the American legal system.
I've seen Suits.
We're very, very qualified.
I've seen Suits. There's my qualification. But
I've watched Criminal Minds.
Yeah, exactly. Sources also say that. Now, here's the part which I think is just like, I read this sentence and I was thinking, like, Jesus Christ. Like, that's where you really just hope for his wife and his children and hope he fucking rots in jail or I don't know. Because sources also said that Lucic's children were hosting a sleepover at their downtown condo that night with friends over. So, like, think about it. Like, when you go over to a friend's house and not even, like, yelled at, you just, like, your friend's parents, reprimand your friend for doing something. Not even a yelling way, just, like, get frustrated with them and you feel really, really awkward and uncomfortable. Like, you don't know what to do. Now, imagine
you're sat there and you're like,
okay, like, wish the floor would just swallow you up. Now imagine with being there and having a domestic assault happen against the mother of your friend. I can't imagine
that's gonna fuck you up.
That's gonna, like, I can't imagine. And, like, it also says so much about him that
like the fact that it's got to the point where he's doing it in front of his children's friends
who are going to go and like go home. And when their parents say like, oh, how was it over? I don't know what his children's names are, but it was like, oh, how was the sleepover? And you say, well, you know, Milan Lucic, you know, hurt his wife.
Yeah. It's like what do you even do in that situation?
Exactly. Like that's what I'm like, I can't imagine. Again, being intoxicated is no excuse for hurting another individual as well. I feel like we all have to say that because the report said that he was intoxicated. Like, no excuse. Operations relayed the responding officers that the reporting party/victim called and stated that her husband attempted to choke her. Police wrote, according to the Globe, the victim stated that her husband could not locate his cell phone after returning to their apartment after a night out. She stated that the suspect began yelling at her, demanding his phone back, believing she had hidden the phone. She stated that she did not have the phone or know where it was. So it was over a cell phone. If it's that little, like it's a little thing of just like a cell phone going missing, which I've done all the time. I've misplaced my cell phone in my like house all the time, like in my room.
Oh yeah.
I like
The amount of times I've been on the phone and then looked around panicked and think, oh my God, I've lost my phone.
and you're actively talking to someone on the phone. Yes.
Yeah.
And you're like, it
No,
can't be far because
I
it's on.
mm,
And
exactly like I was on a school trip and I was on the phone to my mum in a service station. We were leaving to get back on the bus. And I was like running around like Burger King and McDonald's trying to find my phone, thinking, oh my God, I'm never gonna see it again. It's lost. And she was telling me where to look for it.
over the
And then
phone.
it hit us and we were yeah, she was like, have you tried like looking at the table you were sat at? And I was like, yeah, I can't find it. And then it kind of hit us both at the same time. And we were like, it's here in my hand.
Like it's like I'm not going to provide a single excuse for him because what he did was inexcusable. And especially just also the way that his team commented on it. Like, I know it's really hard to talk about it when it's your teammate. Like, it's a
Yeah.
coworker. It's really hard to be asking to comment on a coworker. You have to think about it like a coworker, because that's what these guys are at the end of the day. They're coworkers on a coworker's personal life publicly. That's hard. That's difficult.
Yeah,
But
might
I
as well
do
like
think that it was Marchand's statement that I think a lot of people were commenting on because of just the language that was
yeah.
used. I do think like,
Mm.
yes, okay, I'm sure like their PR team like provided a brief to them on like what not to say and like things like that and how to answer questions to be like, hey, you're going to be asked about this. Here's what you say. Here's what you don't say. But like, just
Yeah, it's tough because like especially when like you know something's happened but you don't know exactly what's happened.
exactly, like they probably also don't know all the information as well. They probably
No.
knew just as much as we did. And they're being asked the next day after practice their thoughts
Mm.
on like, and so I'm not providing excuses because it was
Like
just a miss, like
I mean
it's
at the same time it's like yes, it was like it's a tough thing to have to like talk about when you don't know exactly
yeah.
what's happened. At the same time you don't
Use a
like
nickname. Use a
yeah,
fun
you
nick.
don't talk
No,
about them like they're your best friend. When it's
no.
like even if you know next to nothing, you still know that he's assaulted his
Arrested.
wife.
Arrested. Assaulted his wife and
Been
arrested.
arrested for it.
Yeah.
Like you don't
You say,
act
well,
like it
you
was just silly.
you don't use nicknames. You would probably say like, you know, it's an unfortunate, I don't, would you say situation? Like, yeah, I'm a communications major, so I but it's like you have to in your answer say wish all the best for his wife and children. Did not happen
Yeah,
from Marchand. And I think that was that was what a lot of people were picking out from his statement. But yeah, so Lucic is on an indefinite leave of absence from the team.
never to return.
And we don't know if he'll return. We'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think even if it does, it won't good.
Yeah. Oh, it'll yeah. It'll
It will like
Yeah, so
It'll be shit.
absolutely. I guess now we will talk about, probably to lighten it up a little bit, some good news. Luke Prokop makes his AHL debut, who, if you don't know who he is, you really should. He became the first openly gay man to be signed to an NHL contract when he came out in 2021. I want to make sure I get that year right. It was 2021, right? Yes. Or 20, yes. And he also makes his AHL debut with Milwaukee, which is the Nashville Predators AHL affiliate, and that's also who he's signed to a contract with and who he was drafted by. And he becomes the first openly gay man to play in an AHL game. He had there was a really nice article in The Athletic about him as well, and about kind of where his life has been since he came out and that sort of thing, and how his game has been. And it was really well written, for sure. We'll probably end up tweeting it out from the podcast account, so go follow that if you want to find it. And yeah, from what I saw, it was a good game from him. It's difficult to watch AHL games here because you have to pay like $18 a game or something ridiculous, and I was not about to do that. Sorry, Luke.
Yeah, I very much can't even try.
Yeah, no. So, but what I did hear, what I did read, I read a couple articles and I looked through and just tried to find information about his game. Heard it was a solid game that he had, with, you know, I think he had a penalty and played a pretty good game of hockey, which is really great, which is really exciting for him. I really do hope he goes all the way and makes it to the show, because he seems like a fantastic guy and a really solid player.
I think it'd do a lot of good to have him.
I think so. I think
in
so.
the NHL.
Oh, absolutely. Especially considering, how the season, how the league has gone in terms of LGBTQ, and with the ban on Pride tape and the no warm-up jerseys. But yes, speaking of warm-up jerseys, let's switch our direction over to Carolina Hurricanes are bringing back the Cooperalls. And will wear the Cooperalls and as well as the Hartford Whaler jerseys on February 10th in warmups versus the New Jersey Devils. Interesting. I think it's interesting that I believe the Cooperalls are only getting worn during warmups, and then maybe the jerseys are getting worn as a third jersey.
Yeah, I'm not.
Because again, no specialty warm-up jerseys. So
yes.
There wasn't a lot of information from Carolina, just sort of just announcement posts with some players in them, and they looked really cool. I like the green. I'm a big fan of the Hartford Whaler jerseys. Love the logo, love the colors.
Zach Aston Reese would have.
Oh my God,
Zach would have loved it.
He would have loved it.
Graphic design degree.
If he was still with Carolina, and not with Detroit now. In other news as well involving Carolina, just more on the injury front, because we are going to switch into our injury report as well. But this is kind of injury related, because Thomas Halleck, who was released from his PTO with the Hurricanes, who was signed when the news came out about Frederick Anderson. So that sort of, I don't want to say is expected, but like, that's just news that happened. Obviously, the situation with Anderson, like, you wish him all the best. It's really scary, to think about. It was blood clotting was the issue, which are not to be messed around with, for sure.
No.
Yeah, so let's talk injury. Yay. So I guess we'll start with the Leafs, just only because the Leafs report. So there was a tweet that I saw today where it was Chris Johnson on the Leafs report. If you don't know who Chris Johnson is, he is an insider and Leafs beat reporter. Very, very, very informative, knows a lot about what's going on in the inner workings of the league. He said that Klingberg gave an emotional, that's at a direct quote, scrum in Stockholm, saying how badly he wants to play again, but due to his injury, likely won't. So LTIR is a possibility. That does, however, I feel like take a trade. Now there's a lot of mock trades going around with Zadorov. Klingberg, I think, is included in all of them just as a way to offload his contract, because obviously the Leafs have a lot going on with LTIR with Jake Muzzin and Matt Murray there. So definitely something to look at. Again, with the Leafs as well, Connor Timmins didn't play in Sweden. He did make the trip and he did practice with the team. Again, like we said earlier in the show, might see where he is this week. In Montreal, Harvey Pinard was set on IR. Unfortunate. But in New Jersey, Nico Hirscher practiced with the team on Monday, potentially might play. So that was today. He practiced and potentially might play tomorrow against. Oh, who do they play? That's actually really bad that I don't know. But
yeah,
I should know that. But he might play on Tuesday. So
yeah, which would be nice because seeing him sat there with his sad little face,
yeah,
was crushing.
Oh, absolutely. Like, it's always sad when they like show the
Yeah, because it's like you can tell that he just wants to be back, and he will be.
He will
He'll
be.
come back and he'll again.
Yeah. In Ottawa, Thomas Chabot attended an optional practice today in no contact yellow. So he's on his way to come back from injury as well. Pittsburgh, Pierre-Olivier Joseph was placed on IR on Saturday with an undisclosed injury. I think there was rumors that he was battling an injury for a while, so I think it's just good that he's not playing because, you know, it's better for his game, better for him, and has less people getting mad at him on Twitter at the end of the day. Buffalo, this is a big one.
Through injuries.
Yeah. Buffalo, Tage Thompson is week to week still. They with a wrist injury after blocking a shot. They said a month might be how long he's out. That I think is a huge hit offensively for Buffalo, and a lot of rejigging are gonna have, like, they've played a couple games since then as well, but it's a huge hit for them offensively for sure.
Yeah, like
no, go ahead. Sorry.
He's been really good for them.
Like,
especially this season so far. He's had a really good start to and it really sucks to see him like out like this. Because you can see he was like starting to really fully just like get into the swing of it and then throw this in. And then it's like back to square one.
Yeah, for sure. And like it's just yeah, especially because he's like hitting the prime of his career right now as well. He was a 2016 draft pick, so he's same age as Austin Matthews and Joseph Woll. But, you know, this is prime. And then for Anaheim as well, this is just we're taking the highlights. There's a lot of guys injured right now, but in Anaheim as well, Drysdale and Seagrass still out, but they have been spotted in the press box together.
Yes.
At multiple games so far this week.
In my notes here I've got for them, it's just both injured. Leo Carlson is still a childhood force.
Yeah.
He's just waiting for Dad to make up.
Yeah, maybe all this time in the press box together is going to be good for their couple counseling. Do we want to talk Edmonton? I think we have time to talk Edmonton.
Yeah, I have quite a bit to say about Jack Campbell.
Yeah, Jack Campbell. I think we can talk. Yeah, you know, it's Edmonton has been such a surprise this season. They were going into this year Cup favorites, and yes, defense and goaltending hasn't been great for them. Goaltending especially has not been. But it's even just where are the goal score? Like, the goal scoring's not there for them. And I think it just makes all of their issues look that much worse and makes their goaltending look that much worse. And then it results in things such as, you know, Jack Campbell on a $5 million contract getting sent down to AHL.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks for him because like we've seen what he can do and we know he's good. And then he went to the Oilers and now he's ended up in the AHL, which is just like it's very clearly a coaching problem.
Well, they have a new coach now, so
Yeah,
like,
hopefully not. Should fix it soon, but
yeah.
yeah, I think especially with like goalie coaching,
Oh,
like
I know, like, well,
you've got two goalies who are really good and they've got a lot of potential, and then they're just getting thrown in
yeah.
and just it's a mess.
Well, the Leafs are
And
5-10-1 through their first 16. Not Leafs, sorry. The Oilers are 5-10-1 through their first 16 games. And also they have such a tight cap right now that they're playing with 22 out of 23 active roster spots filled. And as well, so another one to know. I feel like tonight, it's almost 7 o'clock actually. Here,
wow.
Eastern time. Yeah, for me. But it just so Calvin Pickard was called up to replace Jack Campbell. And he starts tonight versus Florida. Now that was from an Elliot Friedman tweet that came out this afternoon. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Like, I think, maybe Jack Campbell maybe it's mental, maybe it's a physical injury, maybe it's both. And, maybe him not like not playing hockey for a bit might do him some good and just getting his mindset back. Because there is I've seen, some clips. Again, AHL games are hard to watch unless you want to pay so much money. But to, watch the broadcast of Jack Campbell, there was a couple goals that I saw that he let in that I was like, I could probably stop those. Like, there's a couple where you're sitting there and you're like, that's a bad one. That's a really bad one.
And it's like obviously like him still playing when he was with the Oilers and then realizing that it's not working out, then getting sent down and kind of like having to go through all that will not have done him any favors mentally.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's
No,
like you can
absolutely
see
not.
it with like now with in the AHL, he's like 13 goals on 72 shots in 3 games,
Oh,
which is miserable.
that's not.
Like he's
Yeah.
on an 819 save percentage.
819.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that's not good. I'm Yeah.
It's a bit miserable for him, and it sucks because he's a good goalie. We know he's a good goalie, and he's also just a really lovely person.
He is a really lovely
And
guy. And
I hate to see this happen.
a lot of people are like, well, thank God he's not doing it in Toronto, whatever. And people are like, well, it's not playing great right now and are getting on him for his play style. But it's like, you also think about the fact that he's a person and you have to kind of feel for any player who goes through a rough patch that can play better than they currently are. And I think that's the case for him right now, for sure.
Yeah, like I've got here, he's averaging 4.36 goals against, which is just gonna absolutely crush you mentally
Yeah,
if you're going in
even if you're not a guy
every
who looks
game.
at your stats, like even if you don't look at your stats, you're not a stats guy as a player, like you're going to get asked about that by
Yeah,
the media. I know the AHL media coverage is not as big as it is at the
no.
NHL level, but you're still going to have reporters ask you about that because if you're playing at a below AHL level, getting paid $5 million a year on a 5-year contract from an NHL team, like,
You're
huge.
gonna get questions,
Oh, absolutely. You're going to get
and
questions.
it's just I hope it's just a mental thing rather than like an injury, and I hope it's something that he does work through and come back against because
Yeah.
I want to see him do well. I really like him.
Yeah.
He
Like, you do want to see him
he
do
was on
well.
my fantasy team. He wasn't doing it any
That was a
favors.
rough pickup for your fantasy squad.
I mean, I had Skinner and Campbell
Yeah, no,
on the same team. I was losing points.
for me, it was like I had Shesterkin and Samsonov on my fantasy team, and there was a point in time where there was about a week and a half where neither of them were playing really good, And I was sitting there being like, what have I done?
Mm.
What have I done?
You're just regretting everything.
Yeah,
Like, I'm sort of thinking, I chose people I liked, but at what cost?
exactly. There's the fine line. I guess you have to be just, and this is why we probably could never be GMs. We'd like the players too much. We wouldn't be ruthless. And this sort of thing, we just feel bad for all of them.
Yeah.
There's a reason we have a podcast and not the GMs. We're not the GMs of NHL teams. Yeah.
Now we should get Edmonton to bring us in, see what we do.
We can turn this around.
I'll bring Justin Hobart. Let's solve all the problems.
Yeah, absolutely. All the defensive woes absolutely gone with a Justin Hall.
Like,
yeah, so well, I'm looking at our time now. Do we think we have time for one more topic, or are we gonna cut it here?
I like to quickly add on from the whole gay people
Oh, yeah.
situation. I have one thing that's like from the Manchester Storm that I just think was nice.
Absolutely. Some feel good stories. We like those here.
Yeah,
Because
it's all good.
we had a lot of sad topics this week.
Oh yeah, it was lovely stuff. And then, yeah, I don't know how. We've got 3 minutes left.
Yeah.
I can waffle it in 3 minutes.
Perfect. And then we can slide into the outro.
Yeah. But yeah, so like leading on from that, it's like Zach Sullivan, who plays for the Manchester Storm, which is my local team. He came out as bisexual in 2020 on the Pride weekend, which was always fun. And earlier, because at the game that I went to the other day, I was sat and I was like, I saw he had pride tape on his stick, and I was like, he was like playing with it on, and I'm like, obviously, as a bisexual player, he's gonna have pride tape on and he's gonna do stuff like that. But I think it's really good because it shows what happens when you have players that are out in the big leagues. Like it's the biggest league in England, in the UK. And it's like to have a player who's openly bisexual and out about it. And he's spoken about how being closeted was really he really struggled mentally with it. And I think I've got a quote here that he came out for the kids that need to hear what he needed to hear as a teenager, which always gets me because it's like,
Yeah.
you can tell how much he cares and how much he wants to make it a bigger conversation in sport, especially in hockey, because we all know it's hockey and gay people is
Oh yeah, absolutely.
not a
And
fun time.
we're both queer fans, and that's part of the reason why we started this podcast, was to provide a space for that. And I think it's really cool that players will, like, there's players, even though it's not a North American league, it's England, but it's, it's out there, and there's, and even if it's great, it grows the game, it grows, and that's what we want.
It
And
does.
Gary Bettman, please bring back the pride jerseys and warm-ups. I beg of you. Please.
Like the highlight of my week.
I'm speaking directly to him right now. This is how you grow the game.
Oh yeah, he's gonna sit there and listen. He's listening. He's
absolutely.
seeing.
Absolutely.
He's
okay.
ready. He's following us.
Yeah. So that is all the time we have for today, but we will be back probably on Thursday, if not early Friday morning, with the next episode. We're going to do this twice a week. We're going to try to. So if you have any questions, send them into the show. I'm Emma. This is Marcie. You can follow us at PairB1 and at 60 Leafs on Twitter. And you can also follow the show at From the Fourth Line on Twitter as well. So we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining.
Bye.
Bye.